An array of objects is a grouping of objects that will be repeated or copied multiple times. So we can see this. I'm going to go ahead and go to our Structural Plans Level 2 view, and we'll take a look once again at this beam right here, and we're going to do an array of it. Now, once again, an array is just multiple copies of the same object. So to do it, select the object and come up here to the Array tool. And it looks like 4 different little squares right next to each other. So select an array. Next, for this example, go ahead and make sure that Group and Associate has a check mark in it. What it's going to do is it's going to keep the same relationship between one of our copies and the rest of our copies. Next, it's going to be asking for a number. So how many of these do we want to create? In this case, I'm just going to create a small number. We're going to create 4 of them. So change the number to be 4. There's a move to, and there's an option for second or last. We'll start off by demonstrating what second does. Second is between keeping the same distance between the first point that you select and the second point that you select. Then every other copy from there on out will keep that same distance between them. So all I have to do is select a spot, move over in a direction, and if I want to be able to copy them every 2 feet, all I have to do is make sure that 2 feet's here on the temporary dimension or type in 2 feet and then hit enter. And now every 2 feet, we have a new copy or an array of these different items. Now, if I want to be able to increase that number, it's easy enough to do. All I have to do is change this 4 to be 7. Or if I wanted to reduce it, I can just click on the 7 and change it to be a 3. And you can see how the array will expand out and shrink back down again. Now, all that became possible because of one of the checkboxes that we had earlier. And that checkbox is, and let me go ahead and select one of these objects so that we can see it. If I execute the array command, was this Group and Associate box. Whenever they're decided to be grouped together, they can keep that 4s, 3s, 7s, that kind of interrelationship in between those different objects. The only bad thing about doing these grouping commands is that they tend to put them all together into what's called a model group, which means that they're all sort of tied together as one unit, if you will. So in order to make it so you can modify one without being forced to modify all of them, all you have to do is select on those items that you just did an array of, and you can come up here to this option up here that says Ungroup. And by ungrouping them, they're now their own individual entities. And what that means is I can select on one, pull it to the side, without the others trying to adjust and trying to multiply by themselves. Now, one other kind of array that you can do is this. If you select on that same object, or in this case it's one of our copied objects, arrayed objects, then come back up to the array command. The other kind that we can do is called last. And instead of repeating the same distance between the first spot and the second spot that you picked, it'll evenly space each of these between the first point that you pick and the last point that you pick. So in this instance, if I change this number to be 5, choose last, pick the first point, pick the last point, and this distance doesn't really matter as long as it's a big enough spacing that they can copy themselves or array themselves over. It's now automatically put copies of these evenly between the first spot that I picked and the last spot that I picked. And it'll continue to do that if I would change this number to a 3 or a 4 or some other number like that. So, arrays can be used for a quick series of copied elements or to place elements equally between known points.